What's up, YouTube? So, time of recording, I have had a huge delay in finishing up my build series on the box truck, and the funny thing is, everybody's been asking for quote-unquote the final tour, which currently does not exist. But my plan was always also to get through all the build videos before I did the tour anyway, and I was not able to keep up with doing the build, recording the build, and editing videos about the build at the same time, especially since at that time I was actually working for a small theater in Oakland. And yeah, I want to do a whole other video about sort of my career goals and how that's making me relook at my goals for this channel in a separate video. But for this video, I do want to get back to the build series. Now, if you're watching this in the future and you're watching my whole build list for some reason, you just get to watch this right after the last video you made, or I made, whatever. But there is a build list which covers all of the details of the build as they were happening, from the point where I moved into here as an unfinished box truck. Yes, when I first moved into the box truck, it was not done at all. It was a metal box with metal walls, and I slept on a sleeping bag on the floor. And I figured out how to do everything in here, and it made the build kind of complicated, even because I couldn't just have this sitting in a driveway building up in it before I moved in. I moved out of my old vehicle. I was trying to sell that because I didn't have anywhere I could park two vehicles, so I was just kind of playing ring around the roadsy on the street. And finally I sold the van, and I was completely living in the box truck as I was building it out, and I got a storage unit for build supplies. Again, if you're watching this in the future, you were watching the build series and you're like, Dawn, why are you recouping this? But because there's been such a long gap between the last video I posted about the build and posting this video, and we're going to go back in time and I'm going to show you those build videos. I just kind of wanted to cover those points for people who are seeing this real time, current time as I am posting it. And the next major build video I had up was actually my cat shelves. But I don't actually consider that video as interesting as this interior wall. We're on the inside of the interior wall, and the outside of the interior wall looks like this. Welcome to the other side of the wall. Now, when people have seen this in photos, it has confused them a little bit. But basically, on this side of the wall, it's a stud wall, and we're about to cut into footage of the actual build, so you'll be able to see all that. And then it has facing on it that looks like wood. This facing that you're seeing, it's not actual wood. It's just a piece of board it's called, name is gone. But anyway, I just bought that flat board as sort of a facing to create the illusion of wood under the minimal amount of work. Because like I said, you know, I was living in this and building it out at the same time as an overlapping process. So anything I could do to shorten the steps was always something that I wanted to do. And obviously right here you can see I have a fire extinguisher. I've had several people tell me, get a fire extinguisher, and I've always had one. In fact, I technically have 3, but I won't get into all that. That's what's good. The tour is going to be when I finally get to it. But I do have several things out here that are important. Number one, my hot water tank, my water jugs, of which I have 2 in the active zone and 2 in the inactive zone. And also I have 2 20-pound propane tanks, which I switch out as needed. There's goods and bads to the way I've set this up. I can change the water over from the inside, again, because they are individual 7-gallon jugs. I have 4 of them. I can't I can't at all change over the propane from the inside, and it does not do an automatic changeover. So whenever I need to change over or fill the propane at a propane station, I do have to come out to the back, roll up the roll-up door, and physically do the changeover. And obviously when I fill up the tanks, I roll up the roll-up door, I pull the tank or tanks out depending on how much empty they are, and then I take them to get filled and reload them back up in their spot. On the other side, opposite to my utilities, because I consider this the utility zone, that's where I have a lot of stuff I use for my porch setup, such as my umbrella, which you have seen set up in other videos and other photos of the box truck. I only do that when I'm camping. This is also a porch space, and that's why I covered the actual lift gate eventually, I tried a bunch of things before I got here, because you'll see in some older videos it's not there, but I eventually covered it with like a faux turf rug, so it kind of has like a grassy look. I stole that from somebody else with the box truck, because they also said because the lift gates are black, when it's hot, it gets very hot and it's unpleasant to touch it or step on it or do anything to it. And he had put this faux grass rug thing on it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I totally stole his idea, because my previous idea did not work. Other ideas that did not work was I actually bought a pretty expensive retractable door from Lowe's, which I intended to install right here, and it did not work out. It was too big, and of course, what do you do with something too big? You cut it down. And that was my original idea, but it wasn't just a normal door, and I damaged it because I would have had to adapt some of the mechanisms that made it work, and I didn't know how to do that, so it just didn't happen. But the good thing is, it's working, and it stores a lot of my tall items. I also have recovery boards out here. I have my, what do you call them? The discs you sit on to make things level. Editing Dawn will remember what it is and put a little note in here. I have a little bench out here I can like set up on the porch when I'm using it as a porch, or I can put it on the ground as something to step on to get up on the porch when I don't want to mechanically lower the lift gate. I know you've seen it in videos, but this lift gate actually lowers very slowly, so a lot of the times it's easier to climb up on it than actually use like the lift feature. It is not meant to be a wheelchair lift. It is meant to be for loading and unloading, because of course originally this was a commercial truck. But I think that's all I have to say about this. So let's go ahead and get into the video of how I actually built this thing, and in a future video we'll talk about what I store out here, how my garage works, and all of that. But that's not important for this video, so check out the build.
I think you only need 8.
Awesome, that means we have a spare. Like many other stages of this project, I owe most of this build to Ashley, who was willing to just help me out on as many projects as she was available for the box truck. She showed up. She was so much better with math than me, so she showed up to do the measuring, to help me figure out if I had enough wood to build this stud wall in the back, and just generally help me figure things out. After cutting all of the pieces, we laid all the pieces out just to make sure things looked right before we attempted to install it in the box truck. And just as we were ready to get going with installing, we hit a snag. Alright, so I have Ashley with me again, and we've had some adventures in assembling my back wall. So first, Ashley did all the measurements, cut all the pieces. Seemed like everything was great. And then we realized I didn't have the right size screws to actually attach everything together after it was cut. So we came all the way to the Home Depots and we got screws. The corrected screws. And then we realized there were some things going on that weren't completely square. And we left the saws back at the storage unit. And also we're gonna need brackets to attach the studs, of which I didn't have enough. So we just went back to the Home Depot. We got brackets. We got facing for the wall. we have screws now, and then we're going back to the storage unit, because the whole plan, Ashley's idea, was to come to the Home Depot and finish the damn thing in the Home Depot parking lot. But now we need the saw, which was left at the storage unit, so now, oh my goodness. This story makes no sense. Just know, this is what you would deal with when building. It's just, it's back and forth to the storage unit, or wherever you're building from. It's going to be a bunch of unexpected trips to the Home Depot. Because, yeah, I love the Home Depot. I don't want to go back in there today. You ready to get on the road? Okay. Oh, yeah. Start with the one right around the sink. I want it right there, where the line is. Yeah, so basically, hopefully this will line up with basically the end of the sink. Okay, brackets. Drill. Screwdriver. So let me try to explain why we needed the L bracket studs. Here's the thing, because I had already installed my kitchen and a number of things were already set, I sort of had to work around those things, meaning I couldn't just make a stud wall and be able to fit it in there. So instead of that, what I did was we set the framing of the two sides and the bottom inside of the box truck, but then there was no way to get the vertical studs to sit up without L brackets. So we had gone to Home Depot to get the L brackets, but there were things that were a little more off than we realized, just a hair out of square, and we didn't have the saw to make those adjustments. So when we got back to the storage unit, that was what we were doing. I can't explain the joy I felt in just having the wall built. This was the last major structure I needed in place to really give my home shape. So for the facing on the wall, on the inside, I decided to use what's called wainscoting or a beadboard, which would match the look of the interior left and right walls and blend right in. For the outside wall, I wanted more of a wood cabin look when the door was up, and so I went with a thing called a project panel, which did not cost $33 when I purchased mine, and it gave me a faux wood look in an 8x12 sheet that I could just cut to size and match up to fit my doorway. So once again, I recruited Ashley, and she helped me get the boards ready to face the wall with so that this wall could be completed. The final step would be me hanging the second screen door option that I got from Amazon. Didn't cost too much, and I ended up getting one for the other side as well, just for double protection. And with that, the inner structure of my home was pretty much complete. There was a work to do on the outside. I still hadn't built the structure for my propane and my water tanks and all that, but that was on its way down the road. So for all the people who've asked me a bunch of questions about this particular interior wall, I hope that covered a lot of it for you. I'm glad I finally got to dig back into those videos and turn them into a video for the build list. I am going to circle back to Mickey's cat shelves and the cat superhighway and also some other little storage baskets I broke, but that's going to be a much smaller video. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that will be the next video in the build series. This particular doorway did go through a lot of transitions. First of all, I didn't used to have a curtain here, and my original idea, for people who saw it, was I wallpapered the back door in this beautiful tree wallpaper, and I thought, oh, when you look through this netting, you're going to see a beautiful tree out there. Well, there were a couple of problems with the tree wallpaper. One, when I did have the back roll-up door up, which obviously it isn't right now, all you could see on the ceiling of my roof was trees, and I didn't like that. I kind of wanted the ceiling to still look brown, and I wanted it to kind of blend in, so I went to the same kind of wood construction paper that I used in a couple of other areas of the truck to give that faux wood look to blend in with the other wood that was already present. And I re-wallpapered the back door with faux wood contact paper, for lack of a better thing to call it. And I like that much better because when the door is rolled up, I do have something that looks more like a straight wooden ceiling. It does cover up the back vent. Words. See, this is what happens when I don't script. It does cover up the back vent when I do that because it'll roll right under the vent. But it looks like I still have a wood ceiling in here when I look up, and I'm not looking up and seeing these trees. The other thing was, as that wallpaper started, during the build, that wallpaper really started to tear and rip up, and I thought I could just replace sections of it as that happened, because I kind of expected that, especially since, unlike a regular wall, I'm constantly flexing it, number one, and number two, you know, it's very... there's basically little gaps created in that movement, and so it didn't take much when things were rattling around back there while I'm driving to start to also put rips and tears in it. Sometimes when it rolls up, something weird happens and something might rip, and because this is basically static faux wood contact paper, it's easier to replace in sections than trying to match the actual trees, and it never quite looked as pretty as I wanted it to. And I actually do like having this curtain to close this area off, because if it gets too junky out here it just looks junky. It didn't look as pretty as I wanted. I wanted this tree effect behind this opening that I never got and so I ended up getting this curtain. Also, when the back door is open, another thing this curtain helps with is privacy. So let's say I'm camping out with people, which happened a lot during RTR and Schoolypalooza. Again, this is why sometimes it's helpful to write some things down. But this happened during RTR and Schoolypalooza, is that I found I needed privacy privacy at times, but I didn't want to go out and close the whole roll-up door. I just needed privacy for a second, maybe to change clothes, maybe to go to the bathroom, maybe to do something where I just didn't want to be exposed. And by adding this curtain, I can now close this curtain long enough to do the thing where I wanted privacy without going out and closing the whole roll-up door, without getting rid of the airflow of having the back door open. And then when I was ready to be seen, even though depending on lighting I might not have even been seen at all, I could pull this curtain back. Also, while I was outside, Mickey could come up to the door, check me out, see what's up, and all of that. Even though I am sad I wasted money on that retractable door that I thought was going to be so cool, so cool, even though I wasted money on that, I'm still very happy with this very simple solution of just a piece of door netting that was already made to a decent size. It didn't take a lot of effort. I mean, it would have been cool to have that retractable netting, but this does the job. When I do want to keep Mickey in and not allow him out, I can have this door open, have a doorway, and still not have somewhere where Mickey might escape into a dangerous situation. And that's the thing, it allows me to regulate what kind of dangerous situations where I want to be very open, when I want to be partially private, and when I want to be very private. And so I love having this inner door. I love having that garage space, especially for my bigger items that couldn't fit in underneath storage. And otherwise, I'm very happy with my choice to have this interior wall with its positioning, even though things didn't 100% work out the way I wanted, because hopefully I said this already, I wanted this bike on the other side of the wall. But there was a lot that changed where I'm so grateful it's on the inside. I think trying to get it out from there for indoor exercise would have been a pain. All right, so again, next video, we're going to talk about finishing the cat suit. The next build video, not the next video posted, but the next build video, because I do want to finish the build series in my recorded videos archive. That video will cover the cat shelves, finishing up the cat superhighway. I started it, so there's already a part 1 to that with Mickey on the thumbnail, I believe, and talk about sort of finishing up the other shelves I added. People see these shelves all the time, and why would I? Obviously, if I stored something up here, as soon as I drove, it would fall off, and that's because it's a Mickey shelf. It's probably going to be a super simple video, but that's the goal for the next one. All right, I'm out. Thank you for joining me for this video. It was a blast kind of digging back into the archive because, you know, as I changed little things along the way, like I forget how much things kind of evolved from the original idea to sort of what I'm living in now. I forget how many tweaks I make because they just kind of naturally happen in the process of living in the box truck. And next thing you know, you're like, wow, that's what it used to look like, because you don't even remember. Alright, as usual, I'd like to thank all of my supporters on Patreon and YouTube memberships just for being there, for sticking with me. I mean, like, I'm always at a loss for words, and that's why I make sure I give this thanks in every single video. Also, to everybody who continues to watch my videos despite the infrequency of them, I absolutely adore your support, and I look forward to rolling out more content to you when I can and as I can. You're all great. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the moment.